Hello and welcome to... We're keeping that in, Drew. The world needs to know about your voice. For those of you listening, we're not even going to do a formal intro today because our guests, Drew Darby and Tyler McCain, have already made themselves known. You guys, welcome to the show.
So great to be here. Thanks for having us.
We'll do more of a formal intro here in just a second. I first just wanted to acknowledge everyone listening. Thank you so much for joining us today and for just taking a chance at believing that this is going to be a great episode. And I'll tell you already that it is. This is titled Courage to Create Something Big, which I believe is something that all of us can do. And sometimes creating something big takes a lot of courage. And Tyler and Drew are two of some of the most courageous guys that I know. And we're going to dive into that as to why here in just a moment. But first, a little word from our sponsor, which is the Sound McCray Strength app, which you can download. Check out the link in the show notes today and join our Facebook community where you'll find thousands of other people just like you who are working toward their goals, whether it is mentally, physically. We have an amazing community there. The app itself already has tons of training programs, follow along day by day workouts, and every week we upload new workouts. We'll even have a mental strength series in there and lots of other stuff. So check that out. It's a great way to support our work, not only here in the podcast, but just everything that Eddie and I do. So thank you so much for those of you that are already there. And know that if you do download the app, you can try it for free for 7 days. And then after that, it comes out to about $8 a month if you get it for a year, or you can get it for $14.99 a month. And I forgot to introduce you, Eddie. Eddie, my co-host.
You don't need to introduce me. It's fine. I'm used to it.
Oh,
I'm kidding. It's a joke.
But I know our listeners are happy that you're here because everyone loves it when you're on the show. So even though you consistently say, I don't think I'm going to join today, Eddie is here. So
I'm here. I'm here because Drew and Tyler are here. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. This is true. We're about to introduce basically two members of our family. That's how we've kind of approach this podcast, is just saying, hey, Tyler and you are pretty much part of our family now. So, but before we do get started, I want to make sure that everyone that is listening, I just want to remind you guys that the tagline of our show is strong mind, strong body, strong love. And so we really hope that as we dive into this conversation today, that you're able to glean some of that for yourself, that you will find a good takeaway for yourself. And the story that we're about to share with you, of course, is filled with a lot of strength. So I'm first going to introduce Drew Darby. So Drew Darby comes to us. I mean, both you guys are in Texas right now. So Drew, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what your role is, and then also how long you have been in that role.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for having us on today, Sally, Eddie. Yes. Appreciate it a lot. Great to see y'all. Coming to you today from just outside of Austin, Texas, but I am west of West Philadelphia, born and raised. You know, the word filmmaker is so pretentious. Like, it's one of those things you say in a lift on the way to the airport when they ask you what you do, and then the driver like tunes you out. It's like a filmmaker. Like, ugh. So I'm a creative here at BPN. We just put the creative umbrella because I get to do a whole lot of different things. But, you know, I started out in film as a kid making bad movies, and that turned into going to college kind of for film, kind of for marketing. And then I spent my first 4 years in the industry outside of college embedded in the criminal justice space, making documentaries, working all over the country, telling stories about lives impacted by incarceration. And then in May, I had the opportunity to join the team here at BPN. And the project we're talking about today, Choose Strong, was really like the first thing that I got to work on for an extended period of time since joining the team at BPN in May.
Which is pretty incredible. So we're going to be talking about something that is still new to you as far as the position goes, and just diving in like 7 months ago. That's amazing. I also want to introduce Tyler McCain. Tyler, say hello. Tell us where you're from and how long you've been in your position there at BPN.
All right. Tyler McCain. I'm from Louisiana, a little town called Natchitoches. probably never heard of it. And I've been at BPN, I don't know, time moved differently here. So it's probably almost 3-ish years I've been at BPN. So yeah, I was here, I started when there's only like 15-ish employees. So I've been here a minute.
Since it started growing, you came in right as it was like really, really starting to take off.
Yeah, for sure. I came in and I was just filming and taking photos for Nick, basically. And then as time went on, I kind of transitioned more into like the BPN side of things.
Okay. So with everything moving so quickly there at BPN, and then Drew, you being brand new to BPN just in May, I'm really curious because the film that you guys created, the Choose Strong Project, which if those of you listening have not watched yet, make sure you go and watch it. You'll find it on the Bear Performance Nutrition on their channel on YouTube. You can also just type in Choose Strong film and it'll pop up as well. It already has over 100,000 views in less than 3 weeks. And it has been shown to be a very impactful film already. And I think that with what you guys did and the feedback that I've seen, Tyler and Drew, it's truly a beautiful film. And the stuff that you guys were able to capture was incredible. And I would think that both you guys have had years and years of experience doing what you do. So tell me a little bit about how both you guys got put onto this project. Because I think they choose a couple guys that maybe put out a bunch of films already, or that were mountain runners or knew the ultra scene. Enlighten the audience with the truth, that the bones of it all.
I'll let you start, Tyler, because I know you came onto the project before I did.
Yeah, it feels so long ago. I know. I remember when we were talking about signing you, or we had just signed you as an athlete, and that all kind of happened at the same time when you were. I guess you were talking to Jordan kind of right after you signed as an athlete about this crazy project you had like in your brain, and Jordan brought it to me. Just because, like, I guess I was the only one here who had worked on a longer form piece with the Leadville documentary. So he brought it to me, and we just kind of started talking about the opportunities there. And we were both, like, super stoked about it, just because, like, that's what we're really passionate about, is, like, long form storytelling. And I don't exactly remember how it all transpired, but basically he just kind of handed it off to me and said, well, I mean, obviously we had to get it approved. And then once we got it approved, he handed it off to me and just said, kind of run with it. And Drew had just started like a month, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a month at that point.
And originally I was definitely coming out to film your first race. And then someone else was going to come, but we were just going to bring another photographer. And I was like pushing Jordan. I was like, we got to get Drew on this thing, because I knew Drew was coming in with a lot of experience, a lot of doc experience. So I was like really pushing for him to come on. And he got the word that he was coming on the first trip, I don't know, like 2 days before or something. So it was all like super last minute.
Yeah, and it was it's a fun assignment for me, right? Because like I'm a huge ultra running fan, but the big but here is that I'd never shot running. My background is in in documentary and storytelling and all that kind of stuff. Like, awesome, good to go. But like, I have never run with a gimbal before. I had never shot running. I had like watched a lot of running films and was like, I could probably figure it out. But I got assigned. I was super stoked to get assigned. I'd been like kind of hoping, but I didn't want to push it too hard with Jordan. I was really hoping I get the chance to come out. But it was just a couple days before Angela's Crest when we kind of settled on me being a part of it, and then we hopped on a Zoom call for the first time.
So that's crazy to me. And you guys, how long had you known each other?
Whenever you moved here.
Since the last week of May when I moved here, and then we shared a room in Buffalo when we were shooting Nick's marathon, and that was like the first time we ever really spent time together.
Wow.
And he was very meticulous about things, and I was like, I need him on my team to do those things.
So Drew liked to pay attention to details. He had a little bit of experience in documentaries, but not running. And then Tyler, you had been on the project when Nick had run Leadville when you put out that film, which is another amazing piece.
At that point, I had shot a lot of running, so I was very comfortable doing that.
Yeah. So throwing you guys together, you guys then very quickly ended up on our doorstep those couple days before we headed out to Andrews Crest 100, which for those of you that are not familiar with this race, for a time, Andrews Crest 100, it dates all the way back to, I believe, 1980 is when that race first broke into the scene, or maybe 1984, but it's been around for a while. It was known as one of the toughest hundreds in the nation for quite a while. A lot of big names used to run it. Now it's kind of dotted throughout. Like every now and then there'll be a year where there'll be a handful of really competitive, well-known athletes will race it. Unfortunately, in the last decade, that race has been washed out or canceled because of fires. And this race is in my local mountains, in the LA mountains, Andrews Crest National Forest, which people are very surprised by how rugged these mountains are. Andrews Crest, the reason why it's known as one of the toughest races is because you deal with three very, very intense factors, which come in the form of altitude, heat, and climbing. And a lot of times races are known for one of those things. So, Leadville is known for altitude. UTMB is known for the amount of climbing. And so I think that Andrews Crest, it has a lot of climbing, over this year it was over 20,000 feet of climbing and descending. I think it came out to 23,000 feet now because they had to reroute the course. And then the heat gets really bad because it is more high desert, and then your altitude the entire time. So when I knew that Tyler and Drew would be coming to this race, one of the first things that I was thinking about, you guys, was I wonder if they're just going to film me in aid stations, which is very common to see in most of the endurance films. You just have filmmakers that'll be there at the aid stations, and then they might follow the runner out for 100 meters, or they'll be 400 meters maybe before they come into an aid station, but you don't get a lot of footage before that. So when Tyler and Drew came to our house in Huntington Beach, I believe we did a little bit of filming just around town, some really basic stuff. We ran through the neighborhood. I think that's actually how the film opens up.
Yeah.
So that was my
just
first time. And that was my first time meeting you guys. And I was just like, gosh, these are the sweetest guys. They're so well mannered. They're so kind. I knew that you guys didn't have any ultra experience. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm taking one of the toughest courses. And that was a big part of the True Strong project, was all the races were pretty tough. So I just finished Badwater, which I know you guys weren't able to be on that race. It just couldn't come together in time. And so any Badwater footage you see in the film, that was Eddie and Colin Cooley with their iPhones, trying to get stuff for you guys. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, a very defining moment at Andrews Crest. And I'd love to hear you guys speak a little bit about this, before race day and some of the things that you guys did and what you committed to. But a defining moment for me was when you guys suddenly appeared at literally the highest point of the race. So this race goes up to, it's a 9,000 feet is where it kind of peaks out in altitude. But it's pretty rugged. You're kind of far out there in the mountains. And, at this point in the race, I believe it was about 15 miles into the race. And, me and my friend, we were kind of battling out first and second for the first and second place for the first 50 miles. And so we were moving at an okay clip. And then all of a sudden, Tyler and Drew fall in behind me. I hear their voices, and suddenly you guys are running behind me. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Where did you guys come from? Because first of all, I was not expecting you to be at the top of the mountain this high up. Then when I turned around, you guys weren't carrying just little GoPros. You guys had some equipment with you, and you guys stayed with me for a while. And it was literally at that moment that I was like, wow, these guys are all in. This is going to be amazing. If this is what they're totally up for doing, because I've been filmed a lot in my decade as a pro athlete. I've done a lot of different films and had to film just different things, even outside of races. I don't have a lot of guys that keep up with me in the mountains. It's just dangerous, on one hand. So you always kind of have to be aware of, of your terrain and maybe slowing down or, making something look good. And so, but we were up there running. And then all of a sudden, Drew and Tyler fell into line. So I'd love for you guys to just share with our audience a little bit about the goals that you guys had going in and what it was like the night before race day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things that we talked about coming into this, I mean, Tyler and I have watched a lot of ultra films. We're fans, of course. Mm-hmm. And in the past couple of years, there's been this shift from, it used to just be like, oh, we hope there's a camera out there, to like, oh, nicer cameras, but they're in aid stations. And now there are a lot of people pushing the envelope. And we said, look, when we make this film, we can't just be in the aid stations. That's great for the storytelling, but it's not great for like conveying the experience to the viewer. You need to be out on course. And so for us, what that looked like was the challenge with all of these races. We never really had time to preview the course. Like Angeles Crest, we did a little drive around with Eddie for like the first 2 or 3 aid stations, but we had never been in these mountains before. We'd never seen these trails. And so we kind of more or less like look at the elevation map, and then we cross-reference that with Google Maps. We cross-reference that with all trails. And like for that one point you're talking about Angeles Crest, we said, oh, there's this trail that if we get on it, we can cut off Sally. So we have to climb a little bit less than she does. So we can probably, we only have to do 1 climb today. All right, we can probably do a little faster than she does. But right, like the risk in that is there's a chance we miss you.
Right.
And then we're up there. We don't know where you are on course. And if we miss you, like, that could be a couple of hours of time where you're just away from us. But we committed to it because we knew it was important for the look of this film to not just have aid station footage, to really get out on course and be able to experience it as much as we were able to. I mean, 2 people, it's hard with 2 people. We're driving, we're making same day edits, coming out the same day. Tyler's pulling selects in the car. I'm pulling selects in the car. We're trying to find Wi-Fi. So it's not like we can just send 5 people to different spots, but we were committed to, we're not just going to make an aid station film. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Like if you're crewing and filming, like, you know, there are plenty of other limitations. But for us with this, we said like, it's really important for the look of the film. And I complained about the big cameras. I'll be honest. I pushed for the GoPro. I was like, Tyler, come on. Can't we just do a GoPro?
My mindset is if we're going to go up there, we might as well take the best thing we have.
And he's so right. You're so right about that.
And basically we would look at the map and we would pick the highest point on the course and be like, that would probably be a cool overlook. So that's where we're going.
And Tyler, I remember you saying too, even the night, but I think it was after the race when I found this out, but you and Drew typically don't sleep very well the night before. And this happened throughout all of the races, but like you guys never really slept until your entire job was done.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to go to sleep or get a good night's sleep the night before. Your mind's just like going everywhere, making sure everything's in place.
Yeah. And I'm a big, like, I know in the morning things aren't going to be set. So everything's got to be set the night before. And like, we just have to take the time. And sometimes it's really annoying. It's like, I love that extra hour or 2, but it's got to be set and ready to go because we wanted to keep another thing that as we're doing this, we never wanted to slow you down. We never wanted to be like, hey, Sally, can you stop and wait for us to get there so we can film you?
That was like number one.
Like we want to preserve your experience as much as we want to capture it and share it. And so it's like, that's not an option. We can't say stop in the middle of the race.
Well, there was one time I wanted to stop when Drew was coming. Drew found me again. So he was by himself as I'm descending a mountain. And all of a sudden he just like pops in and I was like, Drew, what's up? And it was kind of a technical descent. And then all of a sudden I just hear this thump, like this, like, and kind of a little bit of a crash. It's like metal upon rock. And I'm like, like Drew just fell. And I turn around and Drew's like, no, go. I'm fine. And like in my mind, I'm like, me and all my friends who I used to train with on those mountains for years, we've all taken hard falls on those trails. There's rocks everywhere. It's so painful. And when I finally saw you, I can't remember where it was. I finally saw your arms like so ripped up and your knees ripped up.
Hey, it looked pretty cool. It looked pretty cool. Oh, the camera was fine. We got the shot. And I used that footage for sure in the film because I was like, there's no way we're not using this.
Hey, I'm surprised it didn't happen more, to be honest.
Yeah, that was the only injury that we sustained.
Yeah.
Got it out of the way with the first one.
Everything else was just sleep deprivation.
I remember when we went out to preview the AC course, that, you know, those couple aid stations, and you guys, we were looking for a trail to somehow get up to where you guys were wanting to go to meet her. And I know we passed it once. We came back and we're like, I think it's right there. And I remember looking at it. I was like, it was like scaling that one, like kind of the side how you start it. It was like straight up. And I remember thinking like, you guys are nuts, dude. Like who are these guys? Like they're crazy. Going to go up there and try to cut you off.
Yeah. We were like looking at the trail and we were like, is that a trail or is that? We're like,
can be, yeah.
And we get up there and what will become a theme, we barely made it in time. Yeah. Like we were up there and hard. We were kind of like, okay, I think we made it on time. And then I think, of course, Sally, your yellow hat. I'm like, oh, is that her? I was like, oh no, we're going to take a break for like a minute. Like, nope. All right, here we go. Because it was 2 minutes. If we had waited 2 more minutes, I think we would have missed you. We've had no idea. Yeah, somehow we made it up in time.
That would have been such a bummer if you missed it.
It would have, but I think that was like what was so interesting too, because I'll tell you what, the Hopes Pass at Leadville, that descent, as well as the 9 miles that you ran with me in the Swiss Alps, there are some pretty sketchy sections in those mountains as well. And I remember just feeling like, in my mind, I'm an experienced mountain runner. Like, I can't run with a big camera like that. I've never tried, but I was like, dude, these guys are doing this for the first time. They have all this equipment. And I just kept on thinking, like, what are they doing? Are they going to be okay? And even having a little bit of fear, like, what if one of them got really hurt? Like, would I keep running? I probably wouldn't. Like, this is a really risky situation. But I will tell you guys that I feel like anything that's great, it always comes with risk. You can always second guess everything that you do. And many times we choose not to try things because we're too afraid of the risks. And I think that was one of the ongoing powerful themes for you guys there, just your presence. Like, it always so encouraged me. After we finished Andrews Crest, we had like, I don't know, a 13-day turnaround. And I was particularly concerned about Leadville because even though I'm able to get up to 10,000 feet here all the time here in Southern California, I typically am only up that high for, 6-7 hours at the most that I'll train. And I have some breathing things that, of course, like, it just makes me go a little bit slower, but racing above 10,000 feet for 100 miles, I'd never done that before. And I knew about Hope's Pass. I knew that would be a great challenge. So for our listeners, if you're not familiar with Leadville, it's one of the most iconic ultra races in the United States. It's known especially for its high altitude. It peaks out at about 12,500 feet. It is one of the biggest 100-mile races as well. They let a lot of people run it, but it also has a 50% dropout rate. So half the people that start do not finish this race. And a lot of times it does have to do with the altitude. It just slows you down. It's a struggle from the start. And then there is this massive climb that you have to do in the middle of the race. And you have to do it twice. And it's called Hope's Pass. Now, Drew and Tyler did an awesome job before I reached Hope's Pass. Like, I saw them a couple times, getting some great footage. I at no time thought that they would be at the top of Hope's Pass. So when I got up there the first time on my way to the 50-mile turnaround point, I got up to the top. There's an aid station at the top. Then you drop down to the backside, by 5-6 miles, and you go check into the aid station. You turn around, you climb back up. When I climbed back up, Drew and Tyler were there waiting, and I was in so much shock. So I want you guys just to explain what was going through your head and the decision that you made to do the Hope's Pass. When, I'll tell you what, for those of you listening, there was a lot of people on that mountain when I was climbing both up and down who were not able to make it back. They had to time out. They had to DNF because they just couldn't get up and down Hope's Pass fast enough. So Drew and Tyler, on a bit of sleep and already running all around the course for those first 50 miles, then decided to run up to the top of the mountain with their camera equipment. There was no ski lift.
Well, run is a stretch. We definitely walked up.
Yeah. And, I know it was my first time above 10,000 feet at all there, but Tyler's had some experience, and you had actually been up.
Yeah,
You've done this hike before.
Up Hope Pass last year for Leadville, so I had a little more confidence going in, but we definitely questioned it still because the weather, I can't remember exactly what happened. But
it started to rain.
Yeah, we went back and forth for a while, like deciding if we wanted to go for it or not. But then, I mean, we had already had in our brain that we were going to go, and we were like, we came all this way, we might as well. Like, we're either going to sit here and think about it, or we're just going to go up and do it. So we just decided to go, and we never got rained on, so that was good.
Yeah, and I was worried about it for sure because, again, hadn't been up that high. Like, we were a little tired at that point, but there was also the thought in my head of like, so much of the story is going to happen in those few miles, and we had that
or we just don't know what will happen.
Yeah, we just don't know what's going to happen, and it was going to
every time.
It was like this film will be missing so much if something happens and we aren't there, because we weren't allowed to go out to Winfield at the turnaround point, because that was the thought too. Like, oh, could we skip it? Like, we weren't allowed to go out there, so that was off the table. So it's like, all right, we have to get stuck in here in the middle. And especially after the pre-race interview we did, Sally, where we talked about hope. I just had it fixed in my head that it was like, I know I want to use some of that interview, and you have to be able to see it. Like we had to be able to see it.
That was a really beautiful part of the film. And again, those listening, if you haven't seen it, I know that overall you guys had to edit out. I mean, you guys had hundreds of hours of film to go through. And we probably could have made a whole film just about Leadville, to be honest, because the thing is that before I saw Drew and Tyler, I was struggling quite a bit. When I got to Winfield, the medical had actually had me sit down in the aid station. I didn't want to, but I was having some trouble with some breathing. And so when I made my way back up to the top of Hope's Pass, where that next aid station is, I took a really, really hard fall that actually affected me for several months after the race. But it was just, and it was funny because I already had one knee with a brace on it, and then I beat up the other knee. So when I saw Drew and Tyler, I was like at the lowest of low point, and here I'm at the top of Hope's Pass. Like, it was such a crazy like parallel to everything that we had talked about the day before, when I had specifically said, I think that so many times in life or in races, we tend to lose hope, when really, if we just kept pushing through the pain, that's where strength comes. That's where character is formed. And so it was just so ironic that there I was on the top of Hope's Pass. And when I saw you guys, I was like, this is like the lowest. I feel horrific. Like, my knee I was in so much pain from that knee. And then you guys ran all the way down the mountain with me. And it's rocky and slippery because it had been raining. But I do just remember, as we made our way back down the mountain and through the meadow, that whole scene, it was just like, for you guys to be there capturing all that was so powerful, and something I know that I'll never forget. I was so encouraged to see you guys there.
And walking through the coldest water. With the two stream crossings where, I knew we had talked about like, right. There's the crossing that you have to do. We didn't have to do it on the way up because we could go to a different trailhead. It's like, okay, we have to come back and go through this water. And I'd seen the shots from Leadville. I'm like, okay, we go through. I guess I didn't put together in my head that I was like, oh, well, there's no way for us to go around it. Like, right. We have to go through it too. And oh my gosh, it was so cold. I can't believe, Sally, that you had to see, we say all this like, oh, it's so hard for us. Like, we have we have a couple miles on our legs at this point. I can't believe that like all these racers are going through this water twice and they still have so many miles to go.
What is that? What's that clip you pulled from the water?
Oh, yeah. Where we go through and we come out the other side. And then Sally, you just looked up right at the camera, and this didn't make the film, but you just say, refreshing. You're putting on the best face for us at that point, because I know it was hurting, but
it's a mental trick. You say it opposite of what you're really feeling.
Yeah. And then the other great moment, we get back into the aid station, and this is in the film. You can hear Eddie say as he looks at your knee, "Wow, it looks so cool." Try to turn a bad thing into a good thing.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And don't let our nutrition company hear about this, but I will say, the hardest part of Hope Pass was the fueling, because my decision was I brought a Red Bull and one Field Bar. That was it. Terrible decision.
Yeah. But they hooked it up at the aid station. They gave us some snacks. That was clutch.
Yes. They took pity. They took pity on us because I was sorely underprepared.
Well, that's a perfect example of the timing of catching you during a race. We were up there way too early. I think we got up there like
2 hours.
2 hours before we ever saw you. So we were just sitting by the fire, and there was a dog there. And we were just like hanging out with the dog, and all the racers coming through, and we're just hanging out for 2 hours.
Yeah, and that was inclement weather to hang out in too.
Yeah, it was a little cold.
The storm clouds are rolling in, and just to dive a little deeper into that was a moment where I'll admit I had doubts coming into Leadville too. Like, having seen you at the finish line at Angeles Crest, I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. And so we're sitting there, and I can check the tracker. And so we're refreshing, and I see you make it to Winfield, but it's taking a while for the out time to come back. And we're sitting there, and the thought is in my head of are we going to see Sally come back over the top? And so for me, the moment where we see you come back over the top, oh my gosh, that was just such a weight lifted off my shoulders, because it was we're here. Things are still moving, and of course, then I see your knee, and I'm like, "Oh, oh."
You definitely didn't look like you were in pain, though.
Yeah, no easy day.
Smiling.
No. Yeah, but we're all just hanging out, having a good time. That's such a great aid station up there with the llamas and everything.
Oh my gosh, the llamas were amazing. And I always say, just even smiling when things are rough, when there's challenges, it really is kind of like a little superpower. It's also like a costume. I think a lot of runners do that. I'm always amazed, sometimes when you listen to commentary. I was actually in the live feed for the Bandera 100K this past weekend, and so many people in the feed are like, "Oh, she's always smiling. I love her so much. She's always smiling." And I just laugh inside. I'm like, it's so much easier to smile than to tell people why you're hurting so much. It's so much easier to put on a positive face when you're coming to an aid station, when you know that a camera is in your face, rather than just be totally vulnerable and break down and share all the reasons why you are in pain. And, I used to tell I do tell my crew, don't ever say out loud how I'm feeling. I don't want any of the other crews to hear if I'm not well or if I'm low or whatever. I go, because it's fuel for other people. It's fuel for other people when a crew then says, "Oh, dude, the girl in the front looks terrible. She said she feels, sick and she's not doing good and she took a fall." And I just think that that's something that has been kind of ingrained in me too, is dude, I was at such a low point, but I also thought, man, I can also choose to focus on the good in this moment. And I think that did make the film. I was like, we did the 2 climbs. Yes. We are done with this thing. And so that part was, true joy. And I think that, a lot of the racing, you don't know what to expect. And I think for you, Tyler and Drew, you guys didn't know what to expect, but you do have to stay positive. You do have to have that attitude of all right, we're just going to smile and keep walking forward in this. You guys, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but we have to get this shot, or we have to stay awake, or, this is going to be, super sketchy, but we have to stay positive. We have to stay hopeful. And so, yeah, again, I think you guys finding me on Hope's Pass when I was really so low was such a mix of emotions, but it really did set the tone for the next few races that we had. And that's kind of what I wanted to pivot to for both you guys, because I think that what I got to witness by having you guys by my side throughout these events was you guys overcoming some personal fears that you have that are so relatable to our audience. I think a lot of people are going to be able to identify with these. And the first one was when we went to Switzerland, Tyler, which for those of you listening, if you've never been to the Swiss Alps, they are very aggressive mountains. They're intense, steep climbs. They're very technical, rocky trails. If you've seen pictures of the Swiss Alps, it doesn't do justice to what it's like when you're actually in them. And so Tyler, I just want you to dive in and share a little bit about one of the fears that you overcame in that race. And also, it was your first time to Switzerland. Is that right for both of you guys?
Yeah, first
That's
time
correct.
for both.
Okay.
Yeah. We had looked at some images before we went, and we saw some pretty sketchy bridges and whatnot. It was already in my head, like, oh man, this is if this happens and we come upon one of these, I'm just gonna have to just one of my favorite quotes of yours through in the film is sometimes you have to shut your brain off, and that's a perfect description of what I had to do in Switzerland, because we went up. So like every other race, we found the highest point that we could get to in Switzerland, and there happened to be a lift that took us up, so we didn't have to hike it. So we got on the lift and started going up, and the whole lift is all glass, so you can see everything. And this was not like a lift in the States.
No.
It was so far off the ground. And, every time it hits like a bump, it starts swinging back and forth. We were so high. It was swinging all over the place.
And it was a little stormy at that point, too. Because I remember putting on my jacket in the middle of that climb. Mm-hmm.
Right. It's windy. And I was like death grip on the bar. And I just closed my eyes and just waited till we got to the top. But yeah, I knew it was going to be worth it when we got up there. So I just had to shut my brain off.
Yeah. And so it's the height.
Yeah. Super scared of heights. Yeah. Like growing up, I couldn't even like get on the roof of my house, like 5 feet off the ground. Like it's like bad. It was always pretty bad. And I've worked at it a ton to get to where I'm at now, but it still gets me sometimes.
I think that's a very common fear too. I mean, I've been on mountains with friends before. I was on a mountain ridge with a friend who she broke down crying. We actually had to hike back down because it was such an intense fear. And I just, my heart was like so heavy for her, because I understand how fear can literally stop you in your tracks and keep you from moving forward. And there is a lot of points in this project, Tyler, where we were up high, really high. On ridges and
the highest point,
the absolute highest point. Yeah. So what worked for you is just telling yourself to not think about it.
Yeah. I mean, literally you just have to think about the end goal, and the end goal is to get to the top, to get these amazing shots. So I literally just little tricks here and there to like, just I would distract myself with my phone or whatever. I'll be looking at images on the camera just to distract from like looking out of the window, basically.
I love that. So focusing on the end goal instead of focusing on the fear, instead of focusing on the feeling.
For sure. And the fear is always in the way of whatever you want to do. It's always there. It's always in the way. So you just got to get past it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And after Switzerland, Drew, and Tyler, I mean, we had all of 11 days to be surprised by and prep for Mount Whitney, the double summit, which for our listeners, just a really quick rundown of this mountain. It's the tallest mountain in the lower 48 states. Typically, people they can wait months, they can wait years to secure a permit to hike this mountain. And so it is pretty difficult to get in through the lottery. However, people like me who only live 3 hours from the mountain, you can sometimes secure a same day permit or snag like an extra permit that someone didn't use like a couple days in advance. And we had originally toyed with a couple other races on this project. But with the story that we were telling, I loved the idea of creating something that was brand new, a new challenge and a twist, as it represented the twist in my mom's life when she was told that she was diagnosed with cancer. So I wanted something that would be particularly hard, but we then wanted to do something that had never, ever been done before. So at the bottom of Mount Whitney is Lone Pine. And the little town of Lone Pine, it's very small, is typically where hikers will stay the night before they head up to the mountain. And usually people will drive up the main road to the Mount Whitney trailhead, and that main road is called Mount Whitney Portal Road. This also happens to be the way to the finish line in Badwater 135, which I've raced now 3 times. And so I'm very familiar with Lone Pine. It's a city that I have just absolutely fallen in love with. I've spent many, many hours, hundreds of miles training on Mount Whitney Portal Road, as well as the first handful of miles on the Mount Whitney Trail. what Drew and Tyler didn't know is that I have never summited Mount Whitney.
We definitely did not know that.
In fact, it was a surprise that I told Tyler when we were halfway up the mountain, but we'll get into that in just a second. Mount Whitney is known for having snow, sometimes all the way even through July. So, and it's sketchy. If you don't have the proper equipment, you just have no business being up there. And, unfortunately, people do get injured up there every year because they don't have the right equipment. And I believe in respecting the mountain and its seasons and knowing that anything can happen. And so my rule always was, I'll always go up right before the snow line. And so for years, I've always just trained up until about 12,500 feet, but never beyond that. And Mount Whitney is 14,505 feet. So this mountain had a lot of obstacles for us. First and foremost, I had to be able to get a permit for all four of us to be on the mountain and for us to be able to summit this thing twice within a 24-hour period. And I knew that was going to be a really, really great challenge. We also didn't know when I would be able to get those permits. So what happened was we got home from Switzerland, and within probably 4 days of being home from Switzerland, I was able to nail down those permits. So then the guys had just a few days to prepare, ask, prep. Hey, can we go back out to California and go do Mount Whitney with Sally? And this was a really, all around just a crazy, emotional, sensitive part of the trip. One, I wasn't fully recovered yet from Switzerland. I wasn't even fully recovered yet from Leadville or AC 100. But I was so nervous about all the details and all the unknowns of what we were going to do, because we wanted to double summit this thing from Lone Pine. So it's a 92-mile trek, and it's 41 miles each way, or each round trip, and 22,000 feet of climbing, 22,000 feet of descending. So when you guys came to our house in Huntington Beach the day before we left, I'd love for you guys just to share a little bit. Either Tyler or Drew can kind of hop in here, but share a little bit about your expectations and thoughts when the project kind of took this turn, but also just where you guys were mentally going into this part of the project.
Yeah, when we came back from Switzerland, it was really hard to switch gears from what was just such an incredible experience, a peak life experience to be in Switzerland, to be filming, but also an incredibly stressful time over there. You guys have shared before on this podcast the story of our leaving the country was very much in jeopardy. We went through basically 2 days with maybe 15 hours of sleep between the two of us, just craziness coming back. We're still working our day jobs in addition to this project. And then we're coming out to California. Our gear doesn't show up. We had some gear that was being shipped in. That doesn't show up. So we're trying to fix that the night before Mount Whitney. And all the while, and I guess I'll set it up and we'll let it pay off in a minute of the story. But all the while, I internalize stress. I don't deal with it externally. And so definitely as we're going through this, I am internalizing more I have no idea what we're doing, how we're going to get it done. I know Sally's going to do this, but that was absolutely not the part that scared me. It was 100%. There was no other option for us. We like to look at our maps and see, are there ways around it? Can we shortcut off? There's no way around from the Whitney portal to the highest point of the lower 48. There is no road.
Yeah.
A proud moment was when Nick Bear watched the film and said, "Wait, how did you guys get the shots up there? Did you drive?" No, we didn't drive. We didn't take the company helicopter. Yeah. We walked.
I love that story that he didn't know that you guys went to the top of the mountain with me.
Yeah. That was a highlight for sure. It's how did you guys get up there?
There was definitely, and again, there was the conversation of do we send Sally with a GoPro? Do both of us try and do part of it, or do we hand it off, that kind of thing? And again, I was in the GoPro camp for sure, but Tyler was look, we've come this far and we have to do justice to this.
Yeah. There was never really a question in my mind. I was going up regardless. I mean, we definitely went back and forth, but our biggest worry was if we do go up and, we don't we're not doing well, we still have to film. We still have other things to film after you come down. So we didn't want to put us in a position to where we couldn't film the rest of the race or the effort or whatever. So there was definitely a question mark, but yeah, we were there. So we just had to go.
Well, I think there's little pieces. Like I said earlier, I know you guys had to omit so much from the film, but there was a lot that happened both before on our way there, and then even in the first 10 miles when I was running up the Portal Road. I think as we were driving out, Drew, like you, I started to internalize a ton of stress. I was nervous for you guys. Here's the thing: if for those of you that have climbed Mount Whitney, listening, you guys really understand the ruggedness and the remoteness of this mountain. Just as Tyler and Drew said, there is no road to drive up there. If something happens to you, you either have to hike out painfully slow on your own, or a helicopter has to be called out to get you. But there is no light pollution out there. When the sun went down for both of us, it was like a blanket of just blackness. You could not see anything. It was but then the stars were so brilliant. It was just amazing. So this rugged mountain, which also is way more rocky than people understand. It's not like going to, I think sometimes you want to think the tallest mountain is this beautiful peak with green on top or something that's going to be smooth. It is it looks like the top of the mountain has been exploded over and over again by lightning. You navigate tons of rocks and boulders just to get to that summit. And the last 2 miles, you're on a ridge. You're scrambling over the ridge with drop-offs, and it is not for the faint of heart. And I think both times I went up with Drew and Tyler, we passed people who were not able to make it to the top, who were in a bit of emotional distress, people that were crying and upset. And Tyler, I think with you at one point, we met a woman who just decided that she's just going to take her pack off a mile before the summit. She was totally out of it. And wasn't really sure of what she was doing. So it is not a mountain to be taken lightly. It deserves utmost respect. But I think what's important to know is that most people, when they get a permit, it is with great excitement, and it then becomes something that they train for. A lot of people that climb Mount Whitney, I'm not going to say all, because, you meet people that just grab a permit and go. But most people are going to train for a really long time because they want to do the route well. It's typical that a lot of people will do it in 2 days. So they'll go and they'll hike up right before the famous 99 switchbacks where a lot of people camp. And then the next day they'll just go up the switchbacks and then they'll summit. They'll make it a 2-day trip. Other people from the Mount Whitney trailhead to the top, the round trip, they'll take about 14 hours just to hike it, which is the round trip up the mountain and back down. That's 22 miles. So you're looking at a full day hike. A lot of people will start at 2 o'clock in the morning. Some people start at 1 o'clock in the morning. Your permit is good as soon as you hit midnight of that day. So at 12:01 a.m., you can start hiking. And so it's very common, for people to take a long time and for people to not make it. So just setting the scene now for Tyler and Drew, who, mind you guys, have never gone beyond a marathon or not even a marathon distance. Isn't that right? I ran with both you guys your longest distance.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd done a 24 miler in the mountains, but that had been a year and a half. I think it's also important this isn't a Tyler and Drew fitness podcast, but we have run a lot, but we live in a pretty flat part of the country. Austin has some light rolling hills, but our average elevation in a 40-mile running week is 1,100 feet across those four.
Stretching it.
And that's stretching it.
800.
That's if you do a hill session, and that's across 40 miles. And so here, it is very different. So we're kind of leaning on some of that fitness and then some stupidity, some 50-50. Sure. Well, Sally believes that we can do it. So, we'll get there, know?
And a lot of these things, just like the day, you think you have all this time to like think about things and like plan it out, but the day the effort just goes by so fast that like we were at the trailhead in like, I feel like 30 minutes. And we were like, okay, we just have to go. Like, we
don't talk about the Strava QOM that Sally got on the way up there, because I don't know if it was the nerves or if you just wanted to show off, but of course that was the fastest time you'd ever run up to the portal.
It was the nerves for sure. She just went sprinting out.
It really was nerves. Yeah, I did request, although we talked about it at the premiere, which, you know, I didn't want people to share it, but yeah, we had some good efforts throughout the project, but the Mount Whitney Portal Road, right, as we showed up to Lone Pine, it was supposed to be like, show up to Lone Pine, do like a pre-interview with Drew, like maybe let them know what we're doing. And we get there and I hop out of the truck and I'm like, Eddie, where are my bottles? He's like, they're in the back. Like, what's going on? And he's like trying to check into our hotel room. And I was like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go. And he's like, dude, Tyler and Drew are like, we need to get them together. We need to like kind of get on the same page. And something just in me was like, I just need to go. I was like so overwhelmed with, I don't know what it was. It was anxiousness. It was nerves. It was not believing that I could summit twice within 24 hours, knowing that I'd never been to the top before. It was like all this doubt building up. And it kind of was a little bit of like, I just need to go and stop thinking so much, or else I'm not going to go at all. And thankfully, Drew, being on top of things, caught me at the street corner before I went. And Eddie's like chasing me, trying to talk sense into me, like, you need to slow down and you're going to be okay. So Drew and I had kind of a moment. I think I started crying, like even on the corner, like I was not in a good spot. But then that also kind of gave me fuel. Like it did help me having you guys there in that moment, regardless of us like making a film. I was like, okay, we've gone through this whole project together and this is like such a extreme attempt that I'm going to do. Like no one's ever done this before. And so when I took off up that portal road, I think I was just going on adrenaline and just like telling myself to believe in myself. And yeah, I ended up getting the course record for that 12-mile, 5,000-foot stretch. I couldn't believe how fast I got to the top. But the funny thing, maybe not so funny, was that Eddie's truck started overheating. And so Eddie, and because I was like kind of freaking out at the beginning, I didn't put my pack together. Tyler, you know this is going to come out here in a minute. I didn't put my pack together. And so I had told Eddie, I was like, just beat me up the mountain. It's going to take me 2 hours to get to the top, and just do my pack for me. I mean, Eddie knows everything I need. Like I totally trusted him. Well, then I don't see Eddie's truck. And so I ran off my phone the entire time. So I like call him. I'm like, dude, where are you? I'm now just a couple miles from the top. Like I got up way quicker than I thought I would. And he's like, my truck's overheating. And so he was trying to get the truck fixed down in Lone Pine and then get back up to me. So by the time Eddie was able to get to the trailhead, I didn't have my pack all packed. And I was still kind of frantic, like just wanting to get on the trail. And I don't think even at this point, Tyler, I don't think I knew that you were going to go all the way to the top with me. I still was like, dude, I'll just take a GoPro. It's okay. Like you guys don't have to come. But I remember being very frantic about what was going in my pack. And I left half of my nutrition in one of the baskets. I didn't make it into my pack, which is so embarrassing because, you know, I'm not a rookie mountain runner. And especially when you climb the tallest mountain in the United States, you probably need all your nutrition and liquid. But we started up that climb. And Drew, I think you stayed with us for like the first 2 miles, didn't you?
Yeah, I was with you guys for the first 3 up to the permit zone.
Oh yeah, up to the permit zone. So we took off up that trail. We were moving pretty well. And Tyler and Drew, you guys were skipping ahead of me like effortlessly, like getting footage, taking pictures, chatting away. I mean, it felt like so serious, like those first like couple miles, because I just done 12 miles. I was in it. I was committed. I did not know what to expect though, Tyler, going up to the summit with you.
Yeah, I didn't either. I definitely did not have a nutrition plan. I just grabbed as much stuff as I could and put it in.
Yeah, why don't you share with everyone what ended up happening with our nutrition?
I don't even know what I took, but I mean, we weren't even halfway and I already ran out of everything. I didn't have any more water. I had eaten all my food. And we were, I mean, I think we were in the same. Yeah.
8 or 9 miles in, because it was a couple miles before the summit.
Yeah.
And it's 22 miles round trip that he was with me.
Yeah. And I was a little worried, but I wasn't expressing it too much. And I think you gave me like half a bottle of water just to split, I think. And I was very conscious of that on the way up. I didn't drink too much, but yeah, I didn't have a great plan going in, but I had never done anything like that. So I just was going for it.
I think you had a liquid IV and I had one flask of water, and we split that.
Yeah. Yeah. For how many miles? For the remainder?
For the remainder.
Yeah,
so it was it was so ridiculous because, for the last 14 miles, that's all that we
14.
that we had. We were definitely going on adrenaline because when Tyler and I got so you go up the 99 switchbacks and then you hit the backside of the mountain and you kind of climb up the back and then you summit that way. But once we hit the backside of the mountain, that's when we were like, oh, this is like the rugged ridge that we didn't know. Because up until that point, the first like 10 miles 9 miles, it's like, there's no like huge drop offs. Like it isn't like some parts of the 99, you're like, wow, we're up pretty high. But I think once you get to the backside of the mountain, you kind of see how far away you are.
Yeah.
And how high up you are. And
that's when it starts getting a little sketchy. And you're kind of, I know you kept telling me like lean into the mountain. And I was like, okay. But at that point, I think you had maybe referenced it a couple times, but at that point I still didn't know that you had never been to the top. So I thought you were like very aware how far we had to go, and you were not apparently. So we had some false summits, and we were like, I remember one part we were like super stoked. We thought we were at the top, and we still had several miles to go.
Yes.
Well, and there's that one part
I think we
where
saw
you go,
one sign that
you
said
go up
Mount Whitney, and we were like, oh, we're there.
And then you go back down again, and then you have to go back up.
Yeah.
Which is like,
and then
I even knew it was coming. I knew it was coming because Tyler told me.
Right.
And I was still like, just like, oh, I'm so sad.
Yeah. You kept saying like, I think there's like a little house or something up there. And I'm like, what do you mean you think? I thought you've been up there.
Yeah. So listeners, I did not tell Tyler until we were, like 2 miles from the top. Because I pointed out, I'm all, oh, this is the furthest I've ever been. He's like, what?
Yeah, I know. I don't even think, because I mean, when you're that high, your brain isn't like working that
so
well.
True.
So you said a few things like that, and I was like, oh, okay, and didn't really think about it until we got up there.
And getting to the top was a moment I'll never ever forget. I think for both of us, it was just. It was an amazing feat.
Right. Your body just like physically and mentally, you just like are breaking down and you're moving so slow.
So
and like
slow.
Every step is just so hard. Like you just can't think correctly. Like you literally just have to like, it's, what do you call it? Like a zombie walk. You just like barely just like dragging your body up to the top. And then in the back of my head, I'm like still like trying to get some shots. So like anytime
which stopped, were beautiful.
Yeah, like anytime you stopped, I was like, all right, I got to take advantage of this and like get ahead of you and get a couple shots. But yeah, it was tough.
And that was all. I mean, again, that was putting your best foot forward and just doing it for the purpose of the goal. And I thought that was. I mean, I look back still on some of those pictures, and just even in the film. Gosh, it's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have captured all that with a GoPro, by myself. I think some of the perspectives that you were able to get of me and kind of just navigating through the rocks, even at the top, and, the pictures that both you and Drew took of me holding the sign and just that joy that we had. I mean, I'll never, ever, forget that. But I do remember it as we got up there late. Tyler, so many people were shocked that we were going for the summit because of the time of day it was. People were like, what?
Yeah, I mean, we hit it right at sunset, basically.
Right at sunset.
Yeah.
And I think we were able to go a mile before it was completely dark. And that's when we encountered that girl that had dropped her pack and was kind of wandering around. And I remember thinking in my mind, like, Tyler, we can't be on this ridge in the dark. like, I just kept telling myself, like, we can't be on this ridge in the dark. We can't be on this backside. So we kind of hustled to find the girl's pack. And then we saw that she was coming towards us. We're like, all right, she's going to be okay. Cause she's, she has her pack. But I just remember thinking, like, we have to get back to the 99 switchbacks before it's completely dark.
Yeah. We gave her the headlamp too. So she was.
Yes, I gave her one of my headlamps. Yeah. And that was a good headlamp too.
I know. You were like, that's my favorite headlamp.
but then at the same time, it's like, you got to be a good human and help, with a mountain that big and that rugged out there, it was just like, we had enough light between the two of us already. But I think descending that mountain, so we descended, we got back to Lone Pine. And what I didn't know was that Drew was still unsure of whether or not he was going to go up. So Drew, how are you feeling? And Tyler, what did you tell Drew about the experience? Like, that exchange was pretty extreme, because I felt pretty horrific. I think we all did by the time we got back to Lone Pine. So it was 41 miles was done. We ran all the way back down the mountain, and then I hopped on the road and kept going all the way back to our hotel. But we had a couple hours of kind of regathering ourselves. We ate, I changed, and then you and Drew had a conversation.
Yeah, we had a few conversations. You probably remember better than I do.
Yeah,
I wasn't in the greatest mind space at that point.
Yeah, because at this point, both Eddie and I think, severely overestimated or underestimated how quickly y'all would get off the mountain. And so in our time that we could have been chilling, for some reason, I think we were up there for like 5 hours, probably just like waiting for y'all, which no math should have gotten us to the number that we decided that we needed to be there. Like, we could have been resting, having a real meal, anything like that. Like, I took a 45-minute nap. That was it.
Well, that's the only way Eddie's a little worried, because he's super chill at everything. But that's how he was a little worried. He was just literally just sitting at the trailhead waiting. Right.
And we're doing this little dance of, like, anytime we see a headlamp, like, Eddie's truck door opens, my truck door opens. We're like peeking out, like, is it going to be them? Is it going to be them? And it wasn't.
Yeah, we jumped out several times. Yeah, we just nope.
And we're hearing all these people like, oh, we didn't make it. Like, we got so close to the summit, but we just couldn't make it, anything like that. And so it's getting a little scary. But then eventually we do see y'all come down the mountain. And at this point, I was like falling asleep on my feet too. And so we come down back to Lone Pine. We decided to take a reset, which I was super thankful for. And then, I'll be 100% honest, because I haven't been honest up to this point about what happened in between there. Mm-hmm. I excused it for a while as I was sick, but I'll be honest, I had the worst panic attack of my life in the parking lot outside of that motel.
Oh my gosh.
I have always been an anxious person. I internalize it a lot, and that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. And I think the combination of lack of sleep, just pent up emotion of this whole project, and just the whole anxiety of like, are we going to finish this project? We have to get there. It's been almost 3 months. Mm-hmm. All of that colliding with, not sleeping, not resting, not knowing what was in front of me. And I was barely able to eat at all. And at that point, which again also made ascending the mountain eventually very difficult. But I had to be really honest with myself a couple weeks later that I was like, that was a full-on panic attack in the parking lot. And I don't remember how I described it to Tyler. Tyler's like the just most like steady guy, and he deals with a lot of the stuff that I bring up sometimes.
I could definitely tell it was more than just being sick. A little more stress induced. And just like the worry of like, can I make it up? I had only been up 114er, but it is like a scary thought if you've never been, like, you just don't know how, and you have to keep up. Like, if you can't keep up, then what's going to happen after that. So
that was the other thing, is that
there's just a lot of unknowns.
Keeping up it was so important to me not to put you in a situation, Sally, where it was like, you have to crew me. Like, no, like, that's not that, we can't be doing that at the end of this whole project. So that's kind of what happened in Lone Pine. And even as you were restarting, we start shooting again. Mm-hmm. You kind of take off into the night, and we stopped at the one place that was open in Lone Pine, because we're like, well, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and eat something, because I won't make it through this if I don't eat. And even then, I did not know what was going to happen in the next couple of hours. Like, I had no idea we had considered, would Tyler have to go up again? I was very ready to just give you a GoPro if I needed to. Like we were prepared, but I also didn't want to tell you about any of that because I was like, you or Eddie, like
I had no
like,
idea.
Yeah. Because like that was not, you have enough on your mind. And so it was kind of balancing those things of like, we just have to go. But Tyler was really firm with me, and I was really annoyed at the moment because I was like, you don't understand how I'm feeling. But he was like, look, like you just got to start. Like you just got to start and just make sure she gets the GoPro if you can't. Like you just have to go. You'll do it, but you just have to start. We did it. Spoiler. I mean, if you've seen the film, we made it.
Tyler wouldn't let you stay back, huh? He's like, nope.
No. I mean, I was listening to him and I was taking it in, but I definitely didn't give him an out. And if he had to turn around, like that's fine. Like, I mean, I wasn't going to get upset if he had to turn around, but I just knew if he started, then he could do it. I just knew if he started, then it would be over. Yeah,
and the game I played was I was like, you will never let Sally out of sight. Like that was the game that was in my head. Was I was like, just stay focused and like don't let her out of sight. Like we got to get this done. I mean, we went up. Like I didn't really eat. I think I had a gel. I had some peanut butter pretzels. Also, we had the conversation about you guys being like, oh, we didn't pack enough. Like right. I didn't pack enough the second time. It's my mindset in a million different places, and I'm still not packing enough stuff. Yeah, but that summit moment was so special for me, being up there and like knowing that in the moment, that was the hardest thing I've done in my life. Was like that was a feeling I've never experienced. Like definitely that is 100% the hardest thing I've ever done. And being able to do it with a camera, doing the thing that I love, which is filmmaking and storytelling, like that. I mean, a peak life experience. Yeah. And so when I say, I've said on Instagram, I've said at the Q&A and stuff, like making this film changed my life. Like that's 100% one of those moments, like finding a new limit for myself and pushing past that, which I did not expect to have happen. Certainly this year, if I think about how my life was headed in a very different way, like in April before I took this job. And then even just like over the course of the project where we didn't even know Mount Whitney was in the cards. And so just going on that little journey was so special. And I think that's one of the, I mean, there are many reasons, but that's one of the reasons that I genuinely know this project changed my life.
Well, I know essentially I was so inspired by both you guys on that mountain. I've told Eddie that over and over. It was also one of the reasons why I really wanted you guys on the podcast, because I think throughout the project, obviously people have seen like the incredible work that you guys do. And for those listening, make sure that you follow Drew and Tyler on Instagram. They give us little snippets into the beauty that they create. And you guys were putting a lot of that stuff out throughout the whole project. I know on the fly, you were creating reels and editing photos, like in the middle of the race, in between Finding Me. You guys had your hands in so many different things all throughout those 11 weeks of the project. And I think that I felt so honored to be able to witness so much of the overcoming that you guys were doing, because you can look at what you do. And I think for everyone, we can all look at what we do always from a professional sense. Like, this is my career, this is my job, this is how I get my paycheck. And it's something that I love and I'm stoked I get to do it. And for some people, they don't love what they do, but it pays the bills. And that's just the season that they're in life. And all of us have been in those situations. I mean, I've had over 20 jobs in my lifetime. I started working really young. I had a lot of jobs that I didn't like, but I needed to make that paycheck. And I was always wondering about, okay, when is it that I get to do something that I really love and get paid for? But I think being on both sides of that, one thing that we all long to do is to do something meaningful. And sometimes the stuff that is meaningful is stuff that other people don't get to see. Or a lot of times, maybe something is meaningful, but we don't always know who it is that does it. Or how it was created, or we don't get those glimpses. And I think that for creators, just that title that has become more and more popular for creators, I think that there's so much more that goes into creating something beautiful. You have to be vulnerable and you have to be courageous, because it's really easy just to make something great because you have all the right equipment and filters and you're really good at the technology of everything. But when you do something that you put yourself into, when you face your fears and you're okay with being vulnerable and taking risks, which are all the things that you guys did, that's where the good stuff is. The reaction to the film is a great testament of that. Eddie and I get messages every single day about that film, and it's only been out for 3 weeks now. And you go and you read the comments in the comment section on YouTube. I mean, it's not just, oh, cool film. Like, oh, it was beautiful. People's lives have been touched and changed. People feel like they've been seen and heard, and they can relate to it. It is so well done. But I think that being able to witness what you guys overcame was something I personally will never forget. Like, I feel so honored to have seen that transformation with both you guys. One thing I know that we didn't get a chance to chat about was when Tyler got to the top of the mountain in Switzerland, when you guys got off the lift, that massive lift, that climb was one of the toughest climbs in the race. I mean, it was aggressive. It was so steep as someone just going up the trail, like it was hands on knees, steep. And I remember putting on a jacket and the wind really picking up. And I remember looking up at these giant lifts and seeing them sway in the wind. But when I got to the top, seeing Tyler and Drew up there, I was so perplexed by how you guys got up there. I was like, what? And then I also knew that it was 9 miles to the next aid station. So I was really confused as you guys started running with me, because you had the big camera equipment at this point, and you guys started running with me, and that section was really runnable. So it wasn't like we were just speed hiking or jogging. We took off down the trail, and I was like, oh, they'll probably run with me for a mile and then turn around and go back down the lift. But Tyler and Drew, you guys stayed with me all the way to the next aid station. I think that was a 9-mile stretch. Mm-hmm. And it was over bridges and over techie terrain. And it was incredible. Just little things that you guys did like that. And then to see what you guys did at Mount Whitney, that inspired me, far beyond your role and the things that you needed to accomplish for BPN and what you need to do to make this film happen. I think that it really marks just the beginning of a lot of great things that you guys are going to do. If you can take a step through a lot of fear, if you can take a step forward and be okay with the risk and be okay with not feeling great, knowing that the goal is worth it, you're essentially limitless in what you're able to create. So I just want to publicly congratulate you guys on that, because, I've worked with a lot of film crews. I've worked with a lot of photographers and videographers and people who do documentaries over the years. And you guys are hands down the most wildly talented, courageous, very fit camera crew I've ever worked with.
Yeah. Well, of course, thank you for letting us in and giving us access. One of the things I think, of course, Tyler and I were figuring out that we could get along into this as we were basically living with each other. But especially in Switzerland, we had this funny moment where before the race, we're pouring over the map because it's really hard to get around on this course.
Oh my gosh.
That particular, yeah. So Eddie and Tyler and I are all in.
Eddie for driving.
Yeah, Eddie's driving us around. And so these two aid stations that bookend kind of that big section that we ended up filming in Switzerland, you have to go on a train in a tunnel and get to one side. And so Tyler and I are sitting there the night before, it's probably midnight, 1 a.m., and we're jet lagged, and we're just pouring over maps in 3 different languages, all this different stuff. How can we make this work? Because we can't delay Eddie so that he misses Sally at this aid station, because then it's going to be 20 miles until you see again. And I remember I didn't have an answer. I went in, I took a shower, and Tyler's out there working with the gear. And then I came out, and it was one of those Disney movie moments of us making eye contact. And I was like, I know what we have to do. And Tyler was like, yeah. And I was like, we have to run the whole thing.
There's no other option.
Because again, the whole concept of this film is that we can't just be at the aid stations. We didn't fly across the world just to shoot in the aid stations. And so it's well, it's downhill, so hopefully that'll help us keep up.
Yeah.
If you want to see all the stats, follow us on Strava too. We did log all of this. The most important thing.
No, you guys are solid runners. You guys put in miles, but it was fun. a couple times to just be with you guys in those moments of like, okay, this is like a long running day for me. I think that day you guys got in like 15 miles or something like that on the course. Like it was like crazy. 15 miles with cameras, not just like running around, like having fun. Like it was like you had equipment and same thing. I mean, it was on and off weather all day there too. It would rain and then the sun would come out and then it would rain again. The sun would come out and it would be freezing. And it was like, you guys were battling a lot, but I know that at the end of the day, it was just from start to finish, seeing Drew come in at the last minute. You guys developed this awesome friendship, over the course of 3 months and dive into some of the toughest races in the world as in the sport of ultra running. And to see what came out of that, I mean, you had to do what you did in order to make the film so great. It really is beautiful. I mean, the ending of that film and all those images at Mount Whitney, knowing now the behind story of what both you guys had to overcome in order to tell that story, it reaches thousands and thousands and thousands of people and touches lives. So yeah, I commend you guys for that. I'm excited just to see what you guys are going to do in the future. Of course, I selfishly want you at every single one of my events and everything that I do.
Yeah, big props to you guys. In fact, I was wearing Sally got me a Mount Whitney hat and I was wearing it today. And I was like, we're going to do a podcast with Drew and Tyler. So I took it off because I was like, I'm not worthy. I did not go and summit like these guys did. But big props to you guys.
Well, Eddie, you saved my life with the ramen at the end of that because I was finally able to eat again after like 18 hours of having had an English muffin and a gel. And that warm ramen is I think the only reason.
I'm still so confused where you got warm ramen.
Yeah, the hot water was so confusing. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But
hey, I can't do a lot, but I can make a mean ramen.
How did you even heat up the water?
No, that was so good.
It's another podcast.
Yeah, get your recipe.
But Drew, can we just set the record straight here? Can we confirm that opening shot is not a drone? Can we just clear that up?
People need to hear this. No, it's like people need to know.
The opening shot of the film, which I knew was going to be the opening shot no matter what, as soon as I got it, basically. But yeah, that is not a drone. I've gotten a lot of people saying, oh, it's a drone. You flew a drone up there. One, it is illegal to do so in Switzerland like that. We would never break the rules. Two, I'm fast. I was an 800-meter specialist during my one season of middle school track.
That's right, yeah. Tell it.
Did I miscount the number of laps in an 800-meter race? We can neither confirm nor deny that story. We had a very short track. It wasn't just that I missed the number 2. Okay, guys, thank you. Anyway, but no, that opening shot was 100% the helicopter that is my legs built on the flat roads of Austin, Texas.
There's an angle to that shot that made it, look a little higher.
Okay.
This shot is insane. It's insane. It's so smooth.
All right, just wanted to set that straight.
So good. Well, I know personally, Eddie and I had that whole project will go down as one of the highlights of life.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It was so unique. Nothing to be replicated. It isn't just like going. I mean, I've done UTMB 5 times, and every time I go, it's an amazing experience. And it's like that race experience was great. But this was a project that lasted 11 weeks that took on so many different surprises, unknowns, challenges, so much of the in between. But I think that all 4 of us can definitely say that we were all changed by it for the good.
Yep.
And it's so much more than the races, right? Like that's what we got to. And I think that was a hard conversation Tyler and I had to have coming into the edit because we had all this great footage. Like Leadville, I cut together what I thought was a really good, like 20, 25 minute piece just on Leadville. But we had to have the hard conversation of like, this isn't about it's not a race film. This isn't about the races. If we just leave people with, oh, wow, lots of miles, that's cool. Like Sally did a crazy thing. I could never do that. Like we miss so much of the story behind it, both for you and for us. And so we had that hard conversation of like, no, like we need to lean into what does it mean for this to truly be about more than the racing? I mean, in the film, it's like the running's great, but the running's just a metaphor. And I think that's as true for each of our lives as it is for you, Sally, as it is for the film. It's so much more than the races.
Absolutely. And we're just so grateful, call you guys family, call you guys good friends, to continue to watch what you guys do. I know there's so much ahead for you guys. There's lots of trips, lots of days and hours in the mountains to be had.
Of course.
But I want to leave our listeners with a few key points that we talked about today that I think that we can all apply to our lives. And that is truly living a life of courage is always worth it. That fear so often stops us in our tracks. And I love, Tyler, what you kind of just reiterated, that you just had to always be focusing on the goal. And so we want to leave our listeners with that. Focus on the goal, not the fear, not the feeling, because so many times those negative feelings, they are fleeting, but the end goal is so much more powerful. And, Drew, thank you so much for sharing just about that anxiety and that panic that you had before going to Mount Whitney. I think that more people can relate to that than and not just in sport, not just in doing physical things. I mean, I have friends that have had panic attacks over going into a job interview, or just having a big transition in life. It's life sometimes, in all of the unknowns and the challenges, can kind of leave us feeling insecure and feeling like, I'm not sure I'm strong enough to handle this or to face this or to walk through it, or I'm the wrong person. I'm not supposed to be here. And I think at the end of the day, both of you guys not only believed in yourself, but you believed in the goal, that something good was going to come of it. And I think that our listeners can definitely apply that to our lives, whether it's in sport, in relationship or career, or whatever goal that they're chasing, that it takes courage to create something big. And what you guys created through the Choose Strong film is huge. And we've seen that, already in the 3 weeks it's been out, the impact that it's had on the community is big. So I want to thank you, because you guys helped me tell a story that I've wanted to tell for a really long time. And I don't think I could count how many times I told Eddie, I'm like, nobody is going to pick this up because it requires a 3-month commitment. And I was completely understandable of that. I'm like, what, who's going to say, yeah, okay, we're going to throw all our resources at this story you want to tell, Sally? Because most people will be like, yeah, one race will do, or 1 or 2 days of filming, we can kind of put something together. But, to have that support, not only from BPN, but also from you guys to put in that tireless work and see it through to the end. Yeah, I'm just forever grateful for that. Forever grateful for you guys. So thank you for being on the show. Tyler and Drew, tell us the best way that we can follow you.
Instagram or Strava. No,
Instagram or Strava. And what's your handle, Tyler?
No, I'm just kidding.
Put in the notes, but
Tyler, it's just at Tyler McCain.
And I'm at Drew B. Darby. Pretty much anywhere.
You gotta have the B in there.
Gotta put the B in there.
You have to put the B in there.
Yep. Hey, and one other thing, there's one other person we need to thank who's not in the room for sure. That's Jordan.
Yes.
Neither of us are in these seats. I'm not at BPN without Jordan. And so, without him saying yes to the project and then bringing it over to us and saying, how are we going to do this? This film doesn't happen. And we're not here today. So much love to Jordan.
For sure.
Yeah, I echo that too, because I remember when Jordan reached out to me about that, I couldn't believe that he was on board. And then we had a phone conversation. And I remember getting off the phone with him and going to Eddie and being in complete shock. I'm all, he's excited about this. He actually really thinks that we can do this. He would not, he's like, I'm going to go bring it to the team. I'm going to make sure, I think it was a couple conversations he had to have. He did fight really hard.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
For BPN to get on board.
Yeah. He believed in the story and he fought for it for sure. Super grateful.
Yeah. So grateful. Well, thank you, Drew and Tyler, for joining us today. We so appreciate you guys. We love you guys. And for those of you listening, we want to encourage you to be courageous, to be okay with feeling afraid or feeling that doubt. Know that it's a part of your journey, but you can always choose strong and keep moving forward. Focus on the goal instead of the fear. Those feelings are fleeting, but the value in the goal that you're chasing is far greater than any fear that you will feel. And we believe in you, our community, of the Choose Strong community. We stand by you, and we see people every day overcoming, just like Drew and Tyler did. They overcame a lot. They tackled a lot of challenging situations to courageously create something big. And we hope that you will too. Thanks again for joining the show, and keep choosing strong.